Good evening, and it's lovely to be here and talk about my work a little bit. Before I talk about this creation, I want to put a little bit of context on how do you go about making scent? Because if you think about it, scent is something which is totally intangible. If, when you're looking at fashion, something doesn't fit, as long as you know what you're doing, I guess, you make an alteration and suddenly it does fit. Is that right, Zandra? I'm not quite sure. But so before I talk about this scent, I'd like to talk about another creative force that inspired a scent of mine, which was Diaghilev and the Ballet Russe. I made a scent for the Victoria and Albert Museum. I try to do things to support the V&A because I think it's fantastic. And they asked me whether I knew, whether it was true, that Diaghilev always had the drapes sprayed in the theatre. And I said, yes, I know it's true, and I can tell you which scent he used too. And the scent was a perfume called Mitsuko, and it was last used in Britain in an exhibition in 1957. Anyhow, for that exhibition, I wanted to see how you could use scent to show the passage of time. For those of you who don't know, if there are people in the room who don't know very much about Diaghilev's work, he really came with this idea of creating in many ways what one could argue is modern theatre. He commissioned people like Sonia Delaunay, the artist, to design clothes. He commissioned Chanel to make clothes. He commissioned Picasso to make backdrops. And so I decided what would be interesting as you walked through the exhibition at the V&A was to very softly in the background see how scent changed. So if you think of the classic tutu before Diaghilev, the fashion at the time was for big floral perfumes with very large powder undertones. And then my thought was the minute you walked and saw the first work of Diaghilev, that we would have what are called chypres. Chypres are based around mosses and woods, and you can see how this story comes back to Shakespeare in just a second. And it's where you suddenly see a new silhouette born, where Paul Poiret got rid of all that underpinning, and women started to bind their breasts and bob their hair, and were called le petit garçon. And so these masculine materials were suddenly used in feminine scent. So I like the idea in the background you smelt that. And as you walked through and you came to Stravinsky and the Rite of Spring to use the aldehydes, which are very, very big, obviously chemical materials, which revolutionized perfumery in the 1920s, most notably in Chanel No. 5, which today nobody bothers smelling properly because we're all blinded by marketing. It's Chanel. The great thing about No. 5 is it smells of metal. And if you don't know that, before you leave the store, smell it and think of the scent of a hot iron. And you will smell the scent of hot iron in No. 5. And you have to think at this period, people like Mies van der Rohe, Eileen Gray, Le Corbusier were putting shiny metal on the outside of structures. So metal was modern. So this scent was created by the idea of a big change that occurred in society, something which was totally unapologetic and androgynous. So what happened with this new creation? At the beginning of this year, I'm very proud to say I'm an ambassador for Great Britain for my creative work. And at the beginning of this year, the Great Britain campaign started something called Shakespeare Lives, which was to try to encourage Shakespeare in education. It was the first thing that I became aware of this great anniversary year. I was invited to lunch by a man called Sebastian Main. I don't know if this is the correct title. I refer to him as the chief merchant of Selfridges. I think that's his title. Anyhow, if it's in the store, it's ultimately up to him. So we were having lunch, and he said that Selfridges were going to put the store over to this enormous anniversary, the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. He explained how they were going to go to many brands and already had to talk about how they could interpret the story of Shakespeare in new ways. And then he said, I wonder, could you do something with a scent? So I said, well, it maybe is the richest source imaginable. And I immediately said, well, there's one play which comes to my mind without question, and it is A Midsummer Night's Dream. Of course, it's simple. You could have Romeo and Juliet with two blushing pilgrims. Tell me a more beautiful way of talking about two people kissing. You could talk about sonnet number 5, where he talks about a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass. I think it's the most perfect description of scent. But without question, A Midsummer Night's Dream was what came to my mind. So I suddenly thought of all these wonderful images that you see here, of Fantasyland, because I've always believed that scent, when I was a very small boy, I fell in love with scent. And the reason I fell in love with it, I always believed that when you opened a bottle of scent, it was as if you released a genie that took you on a magical journey somewhere, either to a fantasy future or like that to a moment from your past. And that for me is one of the things I think is so special about scent. So I thought of all these incredible people and characters and things which you see in this particular image board that I put here. I particularly like the man down the bottom in the middle, not with his codpiece, which is why he has his hand between his legs. And then on the, is this the second board? You've already flipped me. I have a quick flipper. I'm frightened of devices. So you can see this fantasy land, this beautiful story of Midsummer Night's Dream, where we hear of this man, Puck. Puck, of course, in Britain, I don't know if you know, used to be called, in Britain was called Robin Goodfellow. He was considered a man who got up to no good. So if the milk soured, it was Robin Goodfellow. And this character, Puck, comes from a much earlier character, Faun. And Faun comes from Greek mythology, Faunus. He was the god of the woodland and shepherds. And it's why this man was half goat and half man. And because he was half goat and half man, he wasn't always so lucky in love. So if Faunus, the god of the woodland and shepherds, was the man, the female, of course, is Flora, and it's where we get flora and fauna. So we have masculine and feminine, we have flowers and the wood, and as a perfumer it was very, very easy. In the story, I'm sure you all know that Puck has this magical potion. And when somebody closes their eyes, if he drops the potion on their eyelid, when they open their eye, the first person they see is the person they lose their heart to. And of course, that is the mischief of the play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, because everybody falls in love with the wrong person, including the donkey head. So in this play, we hear of the rivalry between Oberon and Tatiana, the king and the queen of the fairies, and how these two people are always fighting, but they turn around and say how stupid humans are, because we make falling in love so complicated. And I'm sure you all know how the story plays out. I love the idea of a magical potion. I said it at the beginning. For me, that is exactly what a scent is. So I decided what should be in this formula. Nothing should be quite what you think it is. The end can't be the same as the beginning, and you need to go on a journey which is something unexpected. I love the idea that we hear how Tatiana falls asleep in a bed of roses and musk. I love the fact that the rose is a symbol of England. And I love the fact that the rose is the most quoted flower in all of Shakespeare's work. So rose had to be somewhere in the heart of this perfume. We also hear how Hermia falls asleep on a bed of mosses. And the moss is very important, and I of course don't know, this is my supposition. I believe that Shakespeare is making a very particular reference to a bit of Greek mythology, where we hear that Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, fell asleep on a bed of moss. Her bed was made from moss. And this story of Aphrodite gives me, as a perfumer, an entire genre of perfumes which are known as chypre, which is the French for the island of Cyprus, perfumes based around moss and wood. I explained the moss and wood is traditionally what is used as masculine scent. So any of you that think there are men's and women's perfumes, that of course is nonsense. You're doing one or two things, either believing marketing or you're reinforcing Victorian stereotypes of what femininity and masculinity are. Anyhow, so in this scent, what did I want to create? I wanted to create a scent which took you on a journey, that something was very bright and very, very lively, maybe like seeing one of the fairies in the woodland. I want to take you on a journey where you discovered the land of Tatiana asleep in her bed, where you smelt the sweetness of a rose. The rose I use in this scent is a rose called Roja Dove. This rose is so rare, the entire year's production is less than 1 day's production of Bulgarian rose, and it takes over 305,000 flowers, not petals, to produce just 1 kilo of the oil. So we've gone into the land of something quintessentially feminine, and then we quickly whip off into the land of Faun himself, into the land of Puck, the land of the woodland, where we discover mosses and woods. And these are the scents of the chypre, the scent of masculine. And in the end, we arrive in a world of hedonism, a world of absolute pleasure, the world where we lose our hearts. And this for me is the world of the oriental scent, the world of the love potion itself. So the idea came to me literally over a lunch. I don't think we were drunk. I think I maybe had 1 glass of wine, but it was very clear. And I was very, very pleased that I managed to find this fantastic bottle you're about to see. I hope you can see it clearly from where you're sitting. I knew that in 1920, René Lalique created a bottle called Pan. And if you can see on this bottle, from where you're sitting, here you see Pan's face with his horns, and as his beard comes down, it turns into a garland of ivy, and climbing up the ivy are roses, and the stopper is made from rose petals, from rose flowers. I couldn't believe my luck that the bottle was there. It was in one of the large auction houses, and I managed to secure it. And if you look, you can see that the bottle still has the original midnight blue patination on it. So it was simple. I didn't want to call the scent a Midsummer Night's Dream. I wanted to call it a Midsummer Dream, because maybe if we have a dream on Midsummer's Day, the dream will last forever and a day. So this one bottle, there's only one in the world. It comes in a midnight blue lacquer box. And then for the main perfume, that's a perfume, and then for the eau de parfum, I created this special bottle, and the label has Pan on the side, and it's surrounded by flowers and fairies, and we're going to just very quickly pass the scent out for you to smell. In the end, this scent, just like a dream itself, will disappear, and I quite like that idea. I like the idea that, like Midsummer's Day itself, it's fleeting, it won't last forever. I love the fact that a scent, maybe, who knows, in 100 years' time, when somebody is celebrating the 500th anniversary of the great bard, maybe in Selfridges, somebody will find my formula, and they will remake it, and then the past is connected to the future, and the future to the past. And Shakespeare will be reinvented once more, just like it is in Selfridges, and maybe my own work is reinvented as well. So I hope you like the scent. My great pleasure is that it was the very, very first time in Selfridges history, I was told by Sebastian, that a scent has been made exclusively, really exclusively for this store. So it's an enormous honor for me to have been asked to do it. I hope you like it, and I thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Thank you.